Welcome to the Why on Earth Community Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron William Perry, and today I'm visiting with my good friend, the master of disaster, Henry Mitchell IV. Hey Henry, how you doing, man?
Good, Aaron. Good to be here.
I'm so happy we get to have this conversation today.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. I want to tell folks about what we've been working on.
Wonderful, wonderful. Henry Mitchell is a seasoned disaster planner and emergency manager with experience spanning the public, private, and nonprofit sectors in coordination with local law enforcement, state agency, and federal agency partners such as FEMA. He currently serves as the Deputy Director of the Office of Emergency Preparedness and Response for the state of Colorado, where he leads initiatives in disaster preparedness, planning, and response coordination with a strong focus on human-centered leadership, biosecurity, environmental justice, and effective grant management. Henry has played a key role in some of the most critical emergencies in recent years here in the Colorado region, including leading local government COVID-19 responses, managing emergency operations centers, and serving on incident command management teams, and as an EOC manager during major events such as the Marshall Fire that we experienced right here in the Boulder, Colorado region a couple of years ago. His approach is defined by a commitment to producing high-quality, functional emergency plans using trauma-informed principles and maintaining a calm, steady presence in high-pressure situations. Driven by the belief that emergency management work has a profound and lasting impact on communities, Henry emphasizes thoughtful, inclusive strategies that reflect the lived realities of those affected by disasters. He is founder and CEO of World Aware Emergency Preparedness, LLC, which provides consulting and preparedness products and advising services for governments, communities, institutions, and families. And I have to add, Henry is also one of the esteemed essay contributors in our new book, Our Biggest Deal, and his essay is called Planning and Preparedness for Community Resilience. And Henry, wow, I mean, your background and experience is so extensive, and obviously is in an area, in a domain and area of expertise that affects virtually all of us one way or another.
Absolutely. I didn't just start off or fall into this role or this interest, for that matter. I actually have a preparedness journey, if you will. And part of that, I'm starting to publish piece by piece on my Substack. But, it all started, I guess, many years ago, but professionally, I'd say it probably had to start in 2010 after the Haiti earthquake. If I can go into that a little bit. I went down to Haiti in 2010 after the earthquake to do volunteer dental work with a group of dentists out of the Midwest. And we actually had purchased our tickets in September, planning to go, in February. Then the earthquake hit, and we called the dental group, and they said, "Yeah, well, we're still going." So I was like, "All right, I guess we're going to Haiti after the earthquake." And down there, I saw just a number of things that changed my life. Number of really great NGOs doing really good work, providing water to the people, providing water purification, helping folks to rebuild homes, all just different types of really great work. And when I was down there, I was just thinking, how can I join one of these groups? What would it take? So when I got back, I was doing some research, and if you weren't hard medicine, i.e. a doctor or a nurse, they wanted people with experience or degrees in disaster planning. And at that point, I'd already kind of had like a preparedness mindset just from, growing up, where I grew up and how I grew up. But I didn't know that was something that you could do for a living. So I looked up some grad degrees, some grad programs, and found one actually at St. Louis University. That's where I'm from originally, is St. Louis. And started off just wanting to do the master's certificate. But after about 2 weeks in my first class, I called my advisor and I was like, this is amazing. This is really cool work. Sign me up for the full master's program. So that's just kind of a short, brief summary of how I got into this. Like I said, I'll be publishing more on my Substack.
Yeah, that's so great. I was the other day looking at the Substack and reading a little bit, one of your early pieces there about the beginning of your journey. By the way, a shout out to all our friends and family in the St. Louis area and at St. Louis University. My daughter went to St. Louis University, so we're very happy to hear it mentioned. And your degree there is in disaster preparedness and biosecurity, right?
Yeah. So that's why I'm the master of disaster, because I have my master's in disaster preparedness.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I know we were talking the other day about one of the sitcoms we grew up watching, and you shared with me this story that left an indelible impression on you at an even younger age. And I was hoping you might share that with our audience just to help kind of set the tone for thinking about preparedness and resilience in terms of all kinds of disruptions and even major disasters that we have and might again encounter.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the program was Silver Spoons. I'm pretty sure that was it. It was such a long time ago, though. But the family was they were at home and they were impacted by some kind of disaster. I think it was like a tornado or something that caused the power to go out, and they couldn't go anywhere. They had to go into the basement and shelter in place. And of course, because the microwaves weren't working and they couldn't go back upstairs, the kids were getting hungry, and all that they had to eat in the basement was basically like dried soup or like dried ramen noodle packets or something. And one of the kids, a teenager, said, "Oh, I have an idea. We're all hungry. I know how to get us some hot water to heat up this soup." And he walked over to the old school, big hot water heater and opened up the bottom and turned on the little faucet down there and got hot water for the family, and they were able to have like soup and tea and ride out the storm. And it was at that young age, I was maybe 6 or 7, around that age, where I actually, number one, realized that there were things that could disrupt our way of life. There were disasters that we could experience that could change things for us significantly. But also, I learned that even as a child, you could have a certain skill set or knowledge that could help you to better cope with and or thrive in the midst of disasters. And that's one of my first disaster preparedness memories.
Cool, I love it. Chances are good I probably saw that episode. I don't remember it as clearly.
I actually tried to look it up the other day.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, man. It's incredible. Well, I know, Henry, you've shared with me that you're a sort of recovered prepper.
Yeah.
And, one of the things I so appreciate about your professional approach to preparedness and resilience is that your framework of advising and recommendations extends way beyond what I think some folks might consider preparation or preparedness. Mm-hmm. So I was hoping to hear from you in terms of the framework that you use and the way you organize your thinking and your work with different communities when you're thinking about the resilience and preparedness steps we can be taking.
Yeah, absolutely, Aaron. So, one of the things that I noticed in the preparedness space, whether it's YouTube, whether it's talking with folks on the street about preparedness, whether it's reading publications, or just anything going on out in the world, is a lot of folks really depend on the stuff that they have. So they think that a top priority should be to have a bug out bag, or a get home bag in your truck, or a bunker in your basement, or however many weeks worth of dried goods and dried food in your home. And while all of that is great and can actually be useful for actual preparedness, my mindset is that you need to look at a couple of things. You need to, first of all, look at knowledge and skill sets. You can have all the dried beans and rice that you want, right? But if you're not able to prepare the food properly, if you're not able to, take steps to actually store food long term, preserve food, know what you're actually doing with it, then it can get quite dull. Also, I think another big one is community resilience and focusing on the resilience of your communities. Through all of the disasters that we've seen just over the past 5 years, a lot of them have been mitigated. The impacts of those disasters have been mitigated by resilient communities. I think that, looking back to the COVID-19 pandemic response, there may have been some folks who said, oh, well, it's fine. I don't really mind being at home for, a month or two, blah, blah, blah. Well, this is actually okay. But, around a 3 to 4 month time frame is when people started to get antsy. And even for myself, who can be somewhat of an introvert, like not even having the option or opportunity to go out and see friends, socialize, be in the midst of other people, that starts to take a real toll on folks. And so building resilient communities is a really big piece of preparedness, and ensuring that the folks around you, the folks in your community and in your surrounding area are resilient, have taken steps to understand what it takes to be prepared for disasters, and then therefore that helps you to be prepared for disasters. And then another point is relationships, and that goes hand in hand with the community resilience piece. Understanding who is good at what, who is strong at what, right? So if I am myself, my current age, living in my current neighborhood, and I know that, I have a great way to purify water, or I have, a certain amount of dried beans, that's great. But if I understand that my neighbor, a couple blocks down, they're really good gardeners, and they excel every year at their pepper and their tomato crop. Building those relationships with your folks, with your neighbors and whatnot, really helps. So then, I'd be able to go to my neighbor who I have a relationship with and say, hey, I have a bunch of dried beans and some water that I can provide. Looks like you have some tomatoes, maybe some peppers. Why don't we get together and have a community gathering where we can feed all of our community members. Just building those relationships, and I think that relationship piece is extremely important, especially now. If we look at some of the words from, I think, our former Surgeon General, loneliness is an epidemic at this point. And it's something that impacts all of our communities deeply. We have a number of reasons to, just stay at home and do what we have to do at home. People can work from home. You have access to tons of content online that you can entertain yourself. You can, pick out books you can read. You can play video games and whatnot. And I think that because of that, we've drifted away from the third spaces. We've drifted away from the community interactions that used to just come so naturally to us. And that's something that, it takes intention to build.
So interesting. I mean, part of what I'm hearing is that the strategies you're developing, deploying, recommending are good strategies for us, whether or not there's an emergency, and contribute to quality of life, enhanced wellness, mental health. Fascinating to think in terms of the web work of the community as essential to life.
Yeah, absolutely, Aaron. So like you said, all of those things are important. The things I'm pointing out are good for self-care. They are good for wellness. They are good for mental health. And I feel like your preparedness steps every day shouldn't just be for when you're in a disaster. They should be things that help to enrichen and enliven your life day to day.
Yeah, it's so wise, and I'm remembering back and marveling at one of the conversations we had together this summer, hanging out and thinking about our go bags and some of the gear we have, and the resilience and knowledge and skill set stuff is important. There are also some specific recommendations in terms of things we might keep on hand, whether it's ways to filter water and the know-how to filter water when we don't have some of these ready kits and tools at our fingertips. Ways to stay sheltered and warm and clean, right? The hygiene piece comes into play often in
Absolutely
localized emergencies. And I was hoping you could maybe run through for our audience some of the gear and supplies and tools you keep around and think about to be ready for just about anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, while we do want to look at knowledge and skill sets, I'm going to be truthful. I have some gear as well. And I do think that the things that you have can help you prepare. You mentioned hygiene. And I think that as far as maintaining dignity, maintaining self-care, and maintaining your everyday ritual, hygiene is incredibly important. So, for my emergency kits, I ensure that I have things like sanitary wipes. The brand I use is called Dude Wipes.
Dude Wipes, nice.
Those
they haven't sponsored yet, but we'll reach out to them and
we'll
see.
reach out to them. Yeah, so those last for a long time. You just throw them into your go bag. I actually throw them into every single bag that I carry during my day-to-day business. Ensuring that, if you have a deodorant that you like, ensuring that you have an extra one of those always on hand, either in your go bag or in your pantry, so you can just grab it. Ensuring that you have a little travel toothbrush and toothpaste and whatnot. More practically for, when I travel domestically and internationally, I just have a few things in my backpack that I know that I can depend on if something goes wrong, right? So I have a water purification straw. It's from the Life Straw company.
Yeah, Life Straw. Yeah.
And it's one of the single ones, and I just throw that in my backpack whenever I travel and keep it in there. I have an extra pair of socks. I have an extra pair of underpants, and like a kind of workout shirt, if you will, just in case I need to change clothes. I always keep a few extra bars, protein bars, meal bars, and whatnot. I always have some sort of light source, generally like a couple of flashlights, and a lighter. It's kind of hard to travel with those when you're flying and whatnot, but it's always good to have a lighter as well. And those are just the basics that I keep. I also have a tiny little package with some basic first aid materials in it. To be honest, the tiny little Band-Aids aren't as useful, but you can keep some of those. But there's different tapes that you can use, different gauze, different self-adhesive bandages that are a little bit more substantial than the little Band-Aids that I keep. Triple antibiotic ointment for scrapes and cuts and whatnot to stave off infection if you accidentally get cut and whatnot. And I always have, in addition to like the water purification straw, like an actual bottle of water, like a bottle that I can like either use for liquid or for any other purpose that I need. And those are just some of the basics that I bring with me every single place I go when I travel. Everything is TSA cleared, everything is fine. But if you are stuck in the airport or you get stranded somewhere, at least you have something that can get you to the next place.
Interesting. Well, I'm wondering now, I know you just recently were at a conference with a variety of your professional colleagues from the disaster preparedness and first responder and state, federal, and local agency community. And is there sort of a culture of prepper in that professional discipline, and do folks kind of like talk about what they've got in the go bag and that sort of thing?
So not as strong as a presence as I would have thought, but there is definitely a strong undercurrent.
Yeah.
And with a good amount of folks, you can definitely tell that they have more of a preparedness mindset. And so, you can find your people that you can compare notes with, if you will. Like I said, not as strong as of a current as I thought, but there's a very strong undercurrent of folks who do take these steps daily to prepare. And especially after these last 5 years, are really starting to see why it's important to take these steps to prepare.
Interesting. Well, and I'm thinking of our mutual friend, Sheriff Deputy Jason Ryan, and just knowing, I did a ride along with him several months ago, and just knowing that, generally speaking, folks in the first responder community are ready for just about anything at any time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Ensuring that they have things in their vehicle that they could use if they have to be on a call overnight. So when I was a local emergency manager, I always had a sleeping bag and a sleeping pad. Always in my car at all times, and at least some type of nourishment. I think that folks who are first responders do understand that they may not be able to go home. They may not be able to go to a restaurant. They may not be able to leave a scene, at any point. And so that's why they take certain preparedness steps. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. No doubt about it. I'm wondering, in addition to the sort of the one-to-one community connections and relationships you're describing, for instance, your friends who grow really great crops of tomatoes and peppers, are there like neighborhood-wide or community-wide practices you would recommend if, say, a group of 30 or 40 or 50 in a neighborhood wanted to do some additional preparedness, take some additional measures together? Are there additional recommendations at that scale?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I mentioned the tomatoes and peppers, but an additional step is either a community garden or just getting together and understanding what grows well in your region. We're all split up into different regions, like growing regions. What grows well in your region, and then what, you prefer to grow or focus on as a household, and then have that understanding, and then, kind of see what other folks are focusing on. Because, maybe I like tomatoes and peppers, but you don't.
Right.
Maybe you prefer zucchini and green beans. So actually getting together and having a good understanding of, what each household's capable of. And if you all can align, then aligning your growing practices around that. And then also another thing is basic, like getting to know your neighbors, but also
Yeah.
getting to know if there are folks in your neighborhood who have access and functional needs,
Right.
people who have mobility needs,
Yeah.
people who, for some reason or another, don't even normally have access to the things that they may need, like medication or transportation or whatnot. Having understanding of those needs, I think, is really powerful on that community level. That 5, 10 household, 30 people, neighborhood community level is understanding what the needs are, and that's community strengthening as well. So if something does happen, if you are part of a grid that is, shut down to the public's, what do they call them? Public safety service shutdowns, basically, where they preemptively shut down power. If I know that my neighbor down the road has a ventilator or other durable medical equipment, I know that I can go check on them. And it's just that strength in community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you recommend that neighbors have at least one generator to share? Or I'm just thinking, especially if somebody has medical equipment that needs to be powered, that's probably pretty important, right?
Yeah, especially now. And I think we're living in a very interesting time because not only do we have the classic kind of gas-powered generators, but now we even have access to these battery-powered electric generators that you just plug into the wall to charge, or most of them can, use solar power to charge. That's what I use. And they're getting, cheaper and cheaper every year. So I'd highly recommend folks get something like that. Depending on what your needs are. And, when I got mine, I had to do a little bit of studying and investigation on amperage needs and, the specifics of electricity and what the draw is going to be on the battery. But I highly recommend that. We just had, it was either a preemptive public safety power shutoff or just a kind of a rolling blackout deal a couple of months ago. And I plugged in my deep freezer to my portable generator just to see how long it would last.
Wow. Right.
And a deep freezer is another good idea for folks too.
Sure. Yeah. You can store a lot of food that way, right? Yeah. And for folks who eat meat, and we're proud to be friends with so many regenerative farmers and ranchers, and have had many on the show. I'm thinking of Gabe Brown and our friends Nick DiDomenico and Marissa Pulowski up the road. And for folks who eat meat, of course, there are, in cultures all around the world, old traditions of curing meats, and there are ways of preserving fruits and vegetables that don't require freezing or refrigeration, right? And many of these are thousands of years old techniques. And I was wondering if you have some favorites that you like to use for food preservation.
Yeah, absolutely. So Aaron, you said earlier that I call myself a reform prepper.
Okay.
And part of that reformation was really looking at food preservation as far as preparedness. And how I started was just learning how to pressure can foods, right? Taking vegetables, getting a brine of part water, part vinegar, a little bit of salt, some spices, and then pressure canning those. And that was my kind of first foray. And then I moved into actual fermentation. And learning how to ferment foods. And that went hand in hand with my gardening. So I was able to take the cabbage that I was growing in my garden, do a super simple preparation of salt, rub it into the cabbage, use that jus that comes out, that cabbage juice, and then use that to actually ferment the cabbage. And then the next step was kimchi, and really learning how these cultures, in Korea and these other places, especially with kimchi, it is a whole another topic that can be just dove into with thousands of years of experience.
Art form, basically.
It's an art form. It's really amazing what these folks can do. And just, adjusting your recipe to have different flavors, and understanding that if I don't wait too long, it's going to be good, but it won't have that funk that I like. If I wait just right, it's going to be nice and funky, but if I wait too long, it may mellow out. And then, understanding the reality of the safety of it, and how these most fermentation processes are generally safe. And of course you have to have safe conditions and clean conditions while you're making them, but I think that because many of us have strayed away from that, and we're so used to things either being pre-prepared for us, or even from our parents' generation with the canned food and whatnot, we're just so far away from being comfortable with fermentation that there's a little bit of worry. Yep. And of course you should be careful with things, but to be honest, it's fun and it's very safe.
Yeah, fabulous. Yeah, well, I'm delighted that you and I are talking about curating some workshops this coming year for food fermentation and preservation. I think that's going to be a lot of fun with some of our other local community members. Maybe we can get a couple of our farming friends to be a part of that too.
That would be great. I say my next culinary adventure is like curing meat. So I've moved through pressure canning to fermentation, different types of fermentation for different types of vegetables, and then I think my next culinary adventure should be curing meat. I've messed around a little bit with making like lox, cured salmon. But I want to take some of my restaurant experience. I used to work in restaurants years ago, and utilize that to actually like cure some meat and make some charcuterie. I think not only would be delicious and and fun, but also a great thing to add to my preparedness repertoire.
Well, I can't wait to participate in that with you.
Yeah.
That's going to be delicious.
Absolutely.
And a lot of fun. And it is reminding me of one of my favorite nonfiction authors, Kurlansky, I think is his last name. I'll double check and maybe drop it in the show notes. But he's written books about the Basque people, and I was delighted to be able to visit our friends over at the Mondragon Cooperatives. Ander Ishtaberia has been on the podcast, and the Basque have been for centuries and centuries fishing and salting cod, and one of Kurlansky's other books is called Cod, and one of the others he wrote is called Salt, and he gets into the history of cultures using salt in that latter one for food preservation. And apparently salted cod was central to a lot of the migratory flows in the Eurasia, Africa, Mediterranean, what we I guess sometimes refer to as the Old World, which is probably not culturally sensitive, but that the salted fish and meat was central to the last several millennia of human travel and migration over land.
Yeah, absolutely. Even in more recent history, here in America, like you look at what folks were using in their recipes, and it's a lot of like salted meat, things that would last on the road, things that they knew that they could preserve while being out wherever they were, and that's where we get a lot of these like delicious stew recipes and whatnot. Folks use a lot of what was it, salt pork back in the day. But understanding the use of salt and in preservation, and how that can help to extend the life of food.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me remind our audience, this is the Why on Earth Community podcast. I'm your host, Aaron William Perry, and today I'm visiting with my good friend, Henry Mitchell IV, Master of Disaster. And I want to be sure to mention that you can connect with Henry at his company's website, beworldaware.com. We'll include the links in the show notes, of course, and also his preparedness journey, chronicles and logs at the Substack that Henry has published, substack.com/p/my-preparedness-journey. And again, we'll include all this in the show notes. And of course, I want to take a moment to thank our many sponsors and supporters, and including many who not only are making our Why on Earth community podcast possible, but also have contributed to support the writing and recent publication of our new book, Our Biggest Deal, Pathways to Planetary Prosperity. This book has so much information and guiding knowledge regarding the things we can do in our economic, financial, organizational, and community structures and infrastructure to better improve our prosperity, our preparedness, our resilience, our regenerative stewardship and sustainability prospects together. And in the book, we have essays from 28 authors, including Henry. And so I want to encourage everybody to check the book out. You can get a print copy, you can get an electronic or digital copy at whyonearth.org/ourbiggestdeal. And if you'd like, you can use the code OBD10 for a 10% discount. That's OBD10 to take that discount if you'd like. So a huge shout out to our friends at And Co Hospitality, Bluestone Life Insurance, the Brad and Lindsay Lidge Family Foundation, Clean Content, Climate First Bank, Dobrosfera Kind Media, I love saying Dobrosfera, Earth Coast Productions, Gaia AI, Goodstead Financial, Launch Legal, Patagonia's Home Planet Fund, Hush Blackwell, The Regenerative World Quest, The Riverside Boulder, which is where we are presently recording this, Shea Skiff Communications, Soundlight Foundation, Verona Rylander Philanthropies, and Waylay Waters Hemp-Infused Aromatherapy Soaking Salts. Now, with Waylay Waters, if you'd like to join our Why on Earth community, just go to whyonearth.org. On the homepage, you can sign up for our email notices and join the community. It's free to join. If you'd like to make a monthly donation, we invite you to do that at any level that works for you. And if you'd like to do that at a $33 or higher level, you'll get one or more jars of the Waylay Waters soaking salts sent to you monthly as a thank you gift. I want to also be sure to mention our friends at the Riverside here in Boulder, right along Boulder Creek, are offering a generous 20% discount on facility rentals to anybody in our audience, in our network, who might want to come to the Riverside to host an event. It could be a wedding, a corporate retreat, some kind of conference, you name it. The Riverside's a great location to do that. And by the way, with Sundance Film Festival coming to Boulder, we know this is one of the hot venues. So if you're thinking about Sundance stuff, get on it, because I know things are booking up fast, even though that's still well over a year away. So thanks to everybody. Again, thank you to all our supporters, and of course, including our Why on Earth community ambassadors. And are there any other resources, Henry, we should mention that folks might want to get to, or should we just stay focused on the Substack and beworldaware.com as places for them to get started and to connect with you?
Yeah, to get started, beworldaware.com. My company is called World Aware, and we do disaster preparedness, training, consultation, health and safety training and whatnot, and then the Substack as well. I plan to look at YouTube as an option as well to kind of get my preparedness message out there. So that will be coming soon.
Awesome. Oh, that's great. I can't wait to see that, and really excited for all that you're sharing out into the world, because this kind of stuff is from my perspective, it's so foundational, not only in terms of setting us up for success when those challenging moments arrive, but it really sets us up for prosperity and health and happiness in all the other days that we have together in our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Our goal should be to thrive during and after disasters, and be prosperous. And I think that the work that we're doing will lead us there.
That's so great. Well, one of the things I have to ask you about is one of your cultivated expertise is this calm amid the storm approach to leadership. And some of our local friends will know the big Marshall fire that happened here a couple of years ago. You were part of that disaster response, first response team, right? And that was very intense, very fast moving, affecting 1,000 or so?
About 1,000 homes.
Immediately, and others evacuated in the vicinity. And how do you, when you're dealing with these very high stress, very high stakes, very rapidly evolving emergency situations, how do you stay calm in the middle of all of that?
Well, I think that, it goes back to a question that a lot of people ask me, doesn't disaster planning cause you anxiety? Doesn't it freak you out? And actually, it's just the opposite. In my mind, knowing that we have a plan, knowing that we have a structure to deal with this plan, and good people who are enacting on that structure, that is what gives me that confidence. And you have to project that when you're in these emergency situations. For emergency managers, there's this talk of, are we first responders or second or none at all? During the Marshall Fire, as with other disasters, my role is as a coordinator and in the Emergency Operations Center. And you really have to keep your wits about you. Number one, people see you. They see the example that you're giving, and if you are frazzled, if you are too excited to a point where you can't express yourself, you can't treat your coworkers with respect, you start getting toxic, if you will. People notice that, and that can really, just like with anything, it can have a negative impact on your whole operation. And so, for me, I make it a point to stay calm and collected. And I don't know if I can take all the credit for it, because maybe I was kind of born this way as well.
Oh,
I got it from
your parents.
Yeah, right. I think I got it from my dad and my mom and whatnot. Cool. My dad was a real cool character, and my mom is really great in disasters as well. But for my own part, just understanding how being a non-anxious presence can really help you as a leader, and help how people perceive you, help how people listen to your directives and instructions, and really helps you to get your message out there even more, and even more to the point. I think is really why you want to be a non-anxious presence.
Yeah. Well, I admire and really respect your ability to do that. And I've seen you interacting in community settings where it's evident that you bring a very calm, centered, relaxed demeanor.
And to be honest, part of that was honed in the hospitality industry as well. I worked in restaurants for a number of years, and I always say the servers who are on it, because you can walk up to them and say, "Hey, I see you're busy. What do you need?" And they might be typing on the computer, and they'll say, "All right, I need water to table 22. I have plates. I have mains coming up in the pass. Please take them over to table 48. And I'm gonna go pick up these drinks. Could you please greet my other table?" I'm like, you just have to keep it all together.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I learned that skill set.
Oh, it's fabulous! Wow. Well, I want to be sure to ask too. We talked the other day about cascading effects in complex systems. right? And I happen to be taking Fridtjof Capra's Capra course presently. In fact, we have a special discount package available to our Y on Earth community and our emailing and messaging folks about that. So there's another good reason to join the email list if you haven't already, if you'd like to take Fridtjof Capra's Capra course. He, of course, is one of the most highly regarded, world-renowned physicists, scientists, and authors, Tao of Physics, Web of Life, Turning Point, books on Leonardo da Vinci and others. And this course I'm taking is a complex systems theory and science course, which affects virtually all aspects and disciplines of our modern global society, right?
Absolutely.
And within these complex systems, there are phenomena of cascading effects that can go into play. And I'm curious, as a planner and preparedness and resilience professional, how do you think about the potential for cascading effects, whether they're, beneficial or potentially, deleterious, harmful, or dangerous?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad that we're touching on this. In emergency management, we look at generally what's called consequence management. But for me, the bigger picture is, like you said, the cascading effects. In my observation and experience, no disaster is a monolith. You're not just going to have a disaster start one day and then it's finished and you're good. Disasters come in across the whole spectrum of complexity. And, sometimes if one thing happens within a community, then that means that three other things are impacted. And then from those three other things, a couple of other things could be impacted. So, for instance, if the power goes out in a community, then that could impact the water system, right? So you're talking wastewater, you're talking drinking water, right? But often people don't understand that sometimes hospital systems, HVAC, is dependent on flow of water into their facility.
That's the heating, ventilation, air conditioning.
You cannot run a hospital unless you have heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. You just cannot. And so that one impact, that one disaster of a power outage impacting the water supply also impacts the hospital, which impacts definitely individuals who may be coming in for surgery, may be inpatient at the hospital. And so that's just a very broad example of cascading effects. And it's really important to zoom the camera back, if you will, and take a look at what is impacted by this disaster, what is impacted by what. And I think that, as emergency managers and as disaster preparedness minded people, we need to do more of that, is zoom that camera back, because earthquake hits, it's not just an earthquake. There are many, many things that it impacts. Especially here in Colorado, we talk about fires, but post-fire flooding is a thing because of the impact of fires on the land, on plants, and whatnot. And, so we'll see post-fire flooding impacts later on down the season. So not getting into your tunnel vision, but actually zooming the camera back, as I said, and taking account of what these tendrils of the disaster are impacting, I think is really important. What is the next step? I always try to ask myself and my staff, okay, what's the next step? Because it often doesn't just end with, oh, okay, the disaster's over, turn the lights and sirens off, everyone go home.
Well, I love how that framing really sheds light on the dependencies, the interconnectivities, the decision trees that can show up in different situations. And I think really invites all of us to sort of think beyond our own, gate or fence, if you will, our stockpiles of whatever it is we're stockpiling, and to really open up our minds and I'll say our hearts to the broader fabric of relationship interconnectivity, and it's an ecological, holistic way of seeing and understanding and thinking about our world and our communities.
Absolutely. Holistic disaster preparedness, I think, is really really the focus, and one of my focuses is just seeing the bigger picture. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Henry, I'm so delighted we could visit here today, and I know we're gonna, after we wrap up, have our short 5 to 10 minute behind the scenes segment for our ambassador network. If you'd like to become an ambassador, just go to whyonearth.org and you'll find the trailheads to get your journey started. We are a growing global network of community leaders, executives, entrepreneurs, and others focused on regeneration, sustainability, health, wellness, and stewardship, and would love to have you join us. And our behind the scenes segments we share exclusively with our ambassador network, and so we'll be doing that in just a few moments. But let me, before we wrap up, let me thank you, Henry, for being on our podcast today. And before we sign off, I want to open the floor. If there's anything else you'd like to share with our audience, please, my friend, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aaron. So I'm really glad to be here with Aaron. Really glad to work on the Our Biggest Deal project. Glad to have been selected to submit an essay for that and get the word out on disaster preparedness. I really want to impart upon everyone out there that you don't have to have a bunker in your basement to be prepared. You don't have to have 3 months of stockpiled dried beans and rice to be prepared. It's a much bigger picture, and I think that with the pandemic response, with things like the Marshall Fire, the fire in LA, the floods down in Texas, the disasters that we're seeing all across our country, the disasters that we're seeing all across the entire world, it's becoming more and more apparent to everyday folks that yes, it does pay to prepare for disasters. So your everyday run-of-the-mill person, wherever you are in this world, it is not that difficult to take steps to prepare. Just take it one step at a time and try to think ahead, and don't be intimidated by the process.
You heard it here from the master of disaster. Thank you, Henry.
All right, Aaron, thank you.
The Why on Earth Community Stewardship and Sustainability podcast series is hosted by Aaron William Perry, author, thought leader, and executive consultant. The podcast and video recordings are made possible by the generous support of people like you. To sign up as a daily, weekly, or monthly supporter, please visit whyonearth.org/support. Support packages start at just $1 per month. The podcast series is also sponsored by several corporate and organization sponsors. You can get discounts on their products and services using the code WHYONEARTH, all one word with a Y. These sponsors are listed on the whyonearth.org/support page. If you found this particular podcast episode especially insightful, informative, or inspiring, please pass it on and share it with a friend whom you think will also enjoy it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. And thank you for being a part of the Why on Earth community.